Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
Welcome to Period Besties Podcast. We are kicking off June, which is World Infertility Awareness Month, with an interview from an amazing woman who's created a tracker for fertility and also for perimenopause. We'll get into all of that. But I just wanted to let you know that it is World Infertility Awareness Month. It's something close to our heart, as Katie, who went through a bunch of infertility things and shared her story last year. So if you haven't listened to it, please go back to last year. There's an episode with Katie's story. Listen to it, shed some tears, come back. It's very good. Thank you for being willing to share all of that with us. And then we have people coming up this whole month that, while we weren't initially talking to them for this month, they were all people who dealt with infertility, fertility struggles, these kinds of things. And so we thought we'd put all of their interviews out this month just to give you some ideas, some support, some things to try, and put it all together this month in awareness.
Yeah, because it can feel really isolating when you're going through it. So just having the resources, information, and just knowing that you're not alone on this journey, I think is just a really important place to be in, and knowing that maybe there's things that you want to look into or you want to talk to your doctor about. And hopefully we give you some ideas on different types of testing, different types of things to include in your diet, and just a little bit more connection to your womb.
Yeah. And I have to say that in doing these interviews, as somebody who has never even attempted to have children, I found a lot of things that were helpful in supporting the endometriosis journey as well. So even if you are not struggling with fertility issues or have any intention of being pregnant down the line, you may find that there's some real gold in these 4 upcoming interviews that are just really helpful with repairing that relationship with your womb, with your cycle, those kinds of things as well. So listen with an open mind for the things that can be really helpful for you. Let go of the rest, right?
Yes.
All right.
You don't need to do everything.
That's exactly. You can't do everything. I can't wait to get started.
I loved reconnecting with Amy after so many years. She and I met when she was starting OOVA, and we were trying to figure out dates, but it must have had to have been 4 years ago at this point, which is crazy. The COVID time, I can't remember what day, month, or anything that happened during COVID, but I loved reconnecting and hearing all about where her business is now and how it's developed from fertility. Now they're tracking perimenopause, and I loved hearing her personal story a little bit more. But this was such a great conversation for anybody who, you don't even have to be a data nerd, but love actually showing up to your doctor's office with information so you are taken more seriously, is what I really got out of this conversation. Because so often, especially with our clients, we're like, make sure they're testing all these things. You get blood work done, they test nothing. So we're starting at ground zero again. But just to have this information, you can do it at home. It's non-invasive. It's so easy. Oh my God. I could go on and on. I loved talking about this with her.
I did too. I found it really fascinating, and I really loved the non-invasiveness of it, right? And the data, the information, the speed at which you get answers, rather than all right, I've got to referral for blood work, and then I have to schedule it, and then I have to time it so that it's at the right spot in my cycle for this particular hormone. And then maybe I have to go back and do another one for a different hormone. And it's all this blood work and fasting and misery. And then you have to wait for results. And then you have to wait for your doctor's appointment to get the results. And then they go, oh, I didn't even get the right things. I love the fact that you can cut all of that out.
Yeah.
Get an answer right then and there. I just really liked how she saw, here's the problem and let's solve it. And let's make it not just solve the problem, but let's make it quick, efficient, understandable. It's not interpreting lines or smiley faces or whatever. It's here's the actual numbers. Here's the actual data. I absolutely adore it. And I love that she was just so clean, clear, concise, but just, I love it. I'm nerding out.
All right. So without further ado, here's Amy. Welcome back, Period Besties. Today we have Amy Divaraniya here with us today, and we are going to be chatting all about fertility, perimenopause, and testing. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to speak with you both.
Same. And I met Amy years ago at the beginning of this journey, and I'm so excited to share and hear what you've been up to and all of the things. So for everyone listening, share a little bit about yourself and what you were doing and how you discovered this and why this is so important for women.
Sure. That's a loaded question.
Yes.
So I'll start with a little bit about me. So I'm a scientist by training. I have a PhD in biomedical sciences focusing on genetics and genomics, but I'm actually a trained data scientist and worked in industry for about 7 years before pivoting to start OOVA. To be quite honest, I never thought I'd start my own business. That wasn't something I was driven to do or like striving to be my own boss or anything like that. But the reason I ended up starting this company is because at the end of my PhD, my husband and I started trying to have a baby, and it just wasn't happening for us. I'm a very type A person. And so we scheduled everything in life. And I'm like, all right, dissertation scheduled for 9 months. Let's get pregnant, water breaks, get your PhD all in the same day, and we're done. We can move on with our lives. It didn't happen that way for us. I've always struggled with irregular cycles. And I knew going into our journey, I really didn't want to pursue an invasive path to pregnancy. I'd been misdiagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome several times when I was younger. And I really didn't want a clinician to tell me how or when I could get pregnant. If my body didn't do it naturally, we were both okay with, being parents just isn't in our cards. Very easy decision to make, very tough pill to swallow. Nothing could have really prepared me for that journey that we embarked on. It was one of the darkest periods of my life. I realized that all of the products and the technology that I was using were really designed for women that had a 28-day cycle. And that wasn't me. The only thing I really learned out of my 18 months of trying to get pregnant was that I had an irregular cycle, and I knew that going in. So it was frustrating. And I also realized that I wasn't the minority, that a majority of women actually struggled with irregular cycles or not knowing what was going on with their cycle and were limited to these blinking smiley faces. And I was like, this can't be the standard of women's health and the tools that we have accessible to us. So I wanted to change that. And the true driver for me was I realized I didn't want another woman to go through the same journey that I'm on right now. No one should be in this dark, lonely place. We deserve a lot better. And so I set out to solve that. I realized that the data set that was really missing from my pool was understanding my hormones because they dictate everything in our bodies. And so I set out to figure out how to get women that data with clinical accuracy in the privacy of their home as non-invasively as possible. And we built OOVA.
That's incredible. And the drive, the idea behind it, the serving a completely underserved, neglected community. I love it. Absolute adoration.
Well, thank you. It was really the light at the end of the tunnel for us. Yes, my story had a happy ending, but at the time of OOVA becoming a thing, I didn't have that happy ending yet. So I was very much on my journey. And it gave me a new sense of ownership over something, because this whole trying to conceive journey, yes, it's lonely, but it's also it takes over your body and your entire life. right? It's all encompassing. You can't really step away from it. And now every decision you make is tied to, is this going to help me get pregnant, or is this going to hurt my chances? Should I speak to someone before I do this? Let me Google that, go down that rabbit hole of what taking this supplement or eating this leaf is going to do to my chances of getting pregnant. And so by giving myself another purpose, I actually freed myself from that trap I was stuck in. And I was able to not only add value to the community, which we're seeing now, but I was also able to get my mental health back in check.
Huge. Before we dive into the app, can I ask not real quick, you answer at leisure, but when you were putting this together, you were saying you wanted it with clinical accuracy. How hard was that?
Actually, what I did was the real story is I was on this journey and I'm tracking things every day. My partner is amazing, was super supportive, but it got to a point where every month when I really thought I was pregnant, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go take a pregnancy test. And he'd be just as excited as me. And then when I got that negative, he would be just as devastated as me. And that actually hurt a lot more than the sadness I was feeling. So I actually stopped sharing with him that I was taking a pregnancy test. And I really siloed myself off. So one morning, I'm an early riser, like I wake up at 4:30 every day. So I was so confident we were pregnant. I felt like I was late, like I just felt it. And I went to go take a pregnancy test, and it was like the most negative test you could possibly have. But I was sitting with my dad's magnifying glass trying to find this ghost sign. I had all my data all around me, all these images and things I had printed out all around me in the bathroom. And I'm sobbing because I really thought we were pregnant. And I saw my reflection in the bathroom, and I was like, in my shower door. And I was like, this can't be real life. Like, this is really what I'm doing today. And like my PhD work was so cool. Like, we were really shaking up the industry when it came to what we were doing with genomics and like the things that we were analyzing. And here I am looking for a ghost line on a test with a magnifying glass that was like 60 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It just didn't I couldn't comprehend it. So at that point, I'm like, okay, we got to change this. I want to build something that is non-invasive, that is quantitative. So I didn't want this stupid smiley face. I wanted a number. I wanted something that could be done in the privacy of my home. So no mailing samples to a lab or anything like that. It had to be personalized too. I realized that the reason these tests weren't working is because I just wasn't matching what their algorithms were telling them to do. Like my hormones weren't hitting those thresholds, right? But if I can personalize an experience, those thresholds should change and adjust to what my body's doing and give me data for me. So that was the fourth pillar. And then the fifth was it had to be clinically trusted. Because what's the point of doing all this monitoring? And if I do have to go into a doctor's office, they look at all this work I did. It's work. It's a job that you're doing for X number of months or years, and they just dismiss it. I didn't want that to be the case with our technology. So it had to be clinically trusted. So we did a lot of work to make sure that doctors would trust this. It took us 3 years to develop the technology. And in those 3 years, I talked to as many clinicians, including Katie here, about what can I do to make sure that when a patient comes to you with OOVA data, you don't just dismiss it. You actually look at it and be like, okay, this is what we're going to do next. And that feedback I got directly went into the product.
Thank you for sharing your journey too, because so many of us, myself included, I still remember like taking the pregnancy test and similar, like I wasn't really sharing that with my husband every time too, because it felt too heavy.
Yeah.
And calling best friends who also were on a similar journey instead. So thank you for sharing, because I think so many women can really relate to that feeling and then just, what do I do next? And I love that you, even in times of so like deep sadness, had a vision of, I want to make this better, not just for myself, but for everybody else, because that is what we really need so much more of women experiences and really helping other women too. Because if you've been down that road, it is what you mentioned, like dark, long, hard. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's so amazing on your part to really step it up and make a thing that actually is trusted, and you've talked to clinicians, and that you can do it in your home and you don't have to like always have a call and hear that bad news over the telephone, right? Like it can be so much more personalized and supportive rather than feeling like, oh my God, like I have this nurse calling me again, telling me like it's not happening again this month.
Yeah. It's a really tough journey, and I don't wish it on anybody, but there is light at the end of the tunnel in some form, right? We just need to find it and get there.
Yeah.
Was this sort of how the perimenopause arm came along? Was it a continuation of that journey? I've heard so many people talk about their fertility journey and then going into perimenopause, feeling so similar, like what's happening?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Am I getting my period? Am I pregnant? Am I in perimenopause? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you're right. The emotions are actually quite similar. What actually stemmed for us is when I started thinking about this hormonal health platform, I knew it wasn't just limited to fertility. So we really wanted to address the spectrum of a woman's life because like we're changing constantly, right? Like women's bodies are amazing. You can grow another human in there. We are not smaller men. And what's driving all those transitions? It's hormones. Yet women don't even understand what these hormones are. And honestly, like I do consults all the time and I ask women like, how long is your cycle? I did a consult one time and a woman said, my cycle is 5 days long. I was like, what do you mean your cycle is 5 days long? And she's, it's 5 days long. I'm like, you mean you bleed for 5 days? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, that's not your cycle. That's your period, which is the start of your cycle. So the education is just so limited for women when it comes to their bodies. And it's such a core part of our health. You need to understand your menstrual cycle. You need to understand your hormones. And I think that's like a huge disservice. That's like another whole conversation we can have about the lack of education that women get about their bodies. And I don't blame women. I blame system, right? But for us, the mission was always how do we add clarity to a woman, regardless of what phase of life she's in, starting from her first period to last and beyond. We started with fertility because honestly, it was something that like I was living in and I saw such a huge gap there. There was a lot of technology coming out, but nothing was really approaching it the way that we were, right? And I thought women deserved what we were trying to do. And my ultimate goal was how do I raise the bar to what is the standard of care today so that whoever comes after us has to at least meet this bar. This stuff down here can't be good enough anymore. So that's how you're going to see improvement and innovation, right? People have to continue to improve. So that was for the fertility piece, but perimenopause was always in the vision. What ended up happening for us, though, is as we got more users, we saw that 46% of our users were actually above the age of 35. And many of them were telling us that they were perimenopausal. And so when you look at their data, though, they're actually not perimenopausal. Their cycle is just irregular. And when you start to peel that onion a bit more, it comes out, I've always had an irregular cycle. I'm like, okay, you just got a blanket diagnosis of perimenopause because of your age and the fact that you have irregular cycles. You're actually not. You're still cycling. We just got to monitor it a little bit more closely to help you get pregnant. And so it was like a perfect extension of our existing product. So once we added estrogen to our panel, we actually launched in perimenopause as well.
I love it. So what are the different hormones that you're testing? And are there different panels for fertility versus perimenopause?
No, it's the exact same panel. So we currently measure luteinizing hormone, progesterone, and estrogen all through urine. But the days that you monitor and the way we interpret the data is very different for trying to conceive in perimenopause. So what you would do is you would go on our website or your clinician would order you an OOVA kit. That kit comes with 30 test strips. It comes with 15 that measure estrogen or estradiol, and then 15 that measure luteinizing hormone and progesterone. Those are multiplexed on a single test. So every test looks like this. I'll describe for those on audio, but it looks like a pregnancy test, but there's a QR code and a window that shows you lines that show up, but similar to like how you would see an over-the-counter OPK. But the difference is that the intensities of those lines directly correlate with how much hormone is present in your urine. So we spent 3 years developing a quantitative test. But again, I don't want a woman interpreting this by eye. I don't want her to be like, oh, my line is lighter than yesterday, so my hormone level is this today. What we've done is we've actually embedded computer vision and image processing algorithms in our app. So once you dip our test in urine, you actually scan this QR code in this window with your phone, and you get your quantitative results within seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's so brilliant.
Thank
So
you. But then
easy to do.
it is very easy. And that's the one thing that we hear from our users a lot. But to go back to your question, Stasha, depending on what goal you're after, like what your health journey is, are you on perimenopause or fertility? we're going to interpret that hormone data very differently. So you'll get a different insight in the app, you'll get different guidance. But the one thing that is similar in both cases is if you're working with the clinical team, we also seamlessly share your data with them. So everything is HIPAA compliant. That was also a core thing of our platform from day one. And the patient actually controls who can and cannot see their data.
So as a period coach, if I was working with a client who's say in perimenopause, I could say, hey, we're going to do this OOVA testing, and then I could log in and see their results.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Walk us through the back end dashboard a little too, for everyone listening. We have a lot of practitioners and clinicians that listen. So I think it'd be really helpful to share that too.
Sure. So we have a HIPAA compliant web portal that clinicians can log into. Basically, we would set your practice up with an account, and then every practitioner in your practice would have their own login. You would then be searchable in our app. So patients can add themselves as your patients, and then you can see their hormone data in real time, day by day. So the intent of OOVA is to be monitored over 15 to 30 days, depending on which kit the patient buys and what their goals are. The moment the patient scans her test at home, you would be able to view the data in your portal at that same moment as well. So it's all done in real time. And the beauty is you can see the hormone trends. Like for each cycle, you can see all the symptoms that are logged. You can generate reports. We also have an integration with FullScript. So if you have an account with them, you can actually make direct recommendations for supplements through our platform too.
I love that. That makes it step by step, like easy. Cause I feel like so often it's take this test, someone else will interpret the data. Someone else is going to tell you what supplements to purchase. So one stop, which is so helpful because when you're in whether a fertility journey or a perimenopause journey, there's so many other factors happening. Life is happening at the same time, right? So how do we make it easy? Thank goodness, right? I think we all deserve to have some part of this journey on either end a little bit easier.
100%. And we're not trying to replace you, right? As a provider, we're not telling you how to do your job. We're just giving you data, and then you interpret it and do your part. And I think that's what our clinicians really appreciate, because we're not trying to replace any system you already have in place. We're not a scheduling system. We're not a notes taking system. We're seriously just giving you OOVA data. One of our KPIs is not how long are you in our OOVA 360 platform. It's actually the other way. Like, how quickly can you come in, get your information, and get out? Because your job is to treat your patient, not to live in our hormone platform.
I just think it's so genius. And I, like, as an absolute data nerd, like having all of my clients' information there is just, I absolutely adore that. We've talked about it on the podcast before with some of this technology for women, and I'm going to use technology in air quotes here, hasn't been updated since a century ago. And it's just fine. But it's not really. Everything women's health related could use a look at it, like from your perspective. How can we update this? How can we make this easier? How can we reduce wait times, right? Because that's so stressful, just waiting for things, waiting for the phone call, waiting for the test results, waiting for all that kind of stuff, which we don't really necessarily need to do anymore. And yet we're doing it. Anyway, I'm absolutely in love and in awe. Thank you I'm sorry that you had to go on the journey to get here, but thank you for your contribution to women's health in such a powerful and updated way.
Thank you. I would never wish this journey on anybody. Yes, but I do think every battle that we go through makes us a lot stronger. And so I'm very fortunate. I had a very happy ending. My son is somebody who I cherish, probably in a very unhealthy way at times, but when you have to work so hard to get something, you really appreciate every moment with them. And it's rewarding in its own way. But again, not wishing this on anyone.
That's so beautifully said. I would love to hear about just people that you've met through this process, like clients, like just different people that have used the app and what their stories have been too. I'm sure you've heard so many different things on fertility, perimenopause. I would love if you have any thing that you could share. I think that would be really awesome to hear.
Yeah, I'm happy to. There's two that come to mind when you ask this. The first is a woman. She was, and I will never forget her because she was like user number 3 of OOVA. We had just launched it, and she purchases it and does the registration and everything. You can imagine now the first handful of users, we're watching them like a hawk. Is everything working? What's going wrong? How can I help you? And when she registered that her period was over a year ago. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, was this a typo? Because our algorithm won't really know what's going on. And she responded back with, no, it's not a typo. I actually got pregnant. I'm still breastfeeding and my cycle hasn't come back yet. But I'm in the military and I want to have a second child. And they need to be really close in age because I only get a certain amount of time off. And I was like, oh, okay, we won't really know what's going on because your cycle's not back. We have nothing to anchor on. So start testing and we'll figure it out. So she started testing and it was really clear she was still cycling. We ended up getting her pregnant in her second month. And like, it was amazing to see. I'm like, oh my God, like the hormone data is truly actionable and means something. So you don't have to be limited to these assumptions that we have about our cycle and all these things that we think we need to have in order for things to be normal. It doesn't have to be. You just really need to understand the core of it, which is our hormones and what that means. Okay. The second story is more on the perimenopause side. So when we launched perimenopause, I was a little apprehensive to do so because, like, when you think about fertility, there's a predictable pattern that you're trying to model, right? Like maybe the levels aren't identical, but there is a pattern in the hormone levels that you're able to detect and be like, okay, you did ovulate or you didn't ovulate. We can decipher that. For perimenopause, the definition of it is that your hormones are completely all over the place, right? And that's what's causing all of this irregularity and these symptoms that you're experiencing. And when you also think about this for fertility, there's a ton of data out there that you can actually train an algorithm on. Serums, urine, whatever. There's so many studies. For perimenopause, it's really sad how limited the data is. And when you start looking at hormone data, you're talking about like an annual blood draw, and you're trying to draw lines from that. Really difficult to do. So I couldn't really train an algorithm for a perimenopause product. And we were doing a lot of this in-house and trying to figure out what's going on. So we were very honest with our users. We said, guys, we're figuring this out in real time. Like we're building the ship as we're sailing it. If you're willing to join us on this journey, by all means do it. And it's amazing because we had so many women that were willing to be on that journey, acknowledging the fact that there was this huge gap in the data set. And when I did consults with them, what was the overwhelming sentiment is that they were telling us that they felt validated. While the hormone data is like completely crazy, we were able to start to associate symptoms with some of those hormone patterns. Like, for example, we published some research last year showing that when your estrogen plummets really drastically, we saw that women were actually having much lower quality sleep. And there's an action item there, right? Like you start to see your estrogens going down. If you're on HRT, you can start to supplement, do things like that. But what was the sentiment that we were hearing is that women were feeling incredibly validated. And that's really rewarding to hear. Because now you're going into your doctor's office saying, my estrogen is really erratic, not I feel off. Because the doctor doesn't know how to treat off. They know how to treat a symptom or an actual outcome. They don't know how to treat, I don't feel like myself.
We were talking to somebody recently, coaching, and we were like, when you go into your doctor, you need to go into your doctor with the list of symptoms. And I want you to really hit home what this is. Don't do the typical, oh, I can live, I'm all right. Go in there and be like, I cannot sleep. Boom. But to then have this, here is my estrogen, look at it. Here's the deep dive of my estrogen. It's time to talk HRT without having to negotiate what that means with your doctor. It's like a huge asset. I feel like most of us go into a doctor's office ready for battle, right? You're armed. You've got your information, your data, your charts, your symptoms, your notes, like everything. Like you have to be armed for battle to go in. And to have something that's really concrete, that's clinical, that's approved, all these kinds of things, and to say, look, here's the actual data. Just, it's like having a sword in your kit going in for war.
Yeah, seriously, you're armed. That's exactly right.
No.
But you're armed with information.
Yeah. Because so many doctors we hear all the time where I'm like, oh, please ask your doctor to run these tests. And they come back, oh, my doctor ran all the tests. And I'm looking at what they actually did. And I'm like, unfortunately, they didn't run any of the tests that we talked about. So that happens all the time. And it becomes really frustrating for our clients because they're like, getting your blood drawn is not fun, right? That's like the worst thing I have to do for my health. I hate needles. But you go, you psych yourself up, you're like, I'm going to get information. And then you are so excited to present it. And I have to relay back. Unfortunately, this is nothing. Like they basically did a CBC, and you're lucky if they even do a thyroid. That's usually what they'll run, if anything. But most of the time, they don't even do that. So to be able to have a way to collect data and not have to negotiate with the doctor, especially during fertility and perimenopause when you already feel so up and down, is just so helpful. And what you said too, Amy, about when you're going through this and you do feel off, right? But again, doctors don't know what to do with that. But that's the only way sometimes you can describe how you're feeling, because you're crawling out of your skin. I just don't feel like myself. But again, what are you supposed to do with that as a doctor? Yeah, there's that disconnect there so often with women's health.
100%. And I think when it comes to like perimenopause, you also have the other barrier that a lot of clinicians aren't even trained in this properly. And so now you're giving them what our goal is, to provide patients and clinicians with ample data that actually paints a picture, not just inundating you with a ton of data. I think wearables are great. They're giving you a ton of data. How much of that is truly actionable? We're trying to make sure that our data is actionable. And I think that's a really big difference between OOVA and some of the other companies out there, because we're not just trying to put information out. We're actually trying to help you get to the answer as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Yep. Agreed. That's fantastic. I'm absolutely in love.
Yeah.
So can we ask you personally, you went through a trial and came out the other side. What are some of the things that you did to take care of your mental health, your emotional health?
Similar to what you said earlier, Stasha, like I'm a data junkie. To me, the way that I felt like I was doing something was by collecting as much data as possible. And I used to commute into New York. So I live in Connecticut, and I used to take the train into New York every day. Now you can imagine, this is pre-COVID. The trains used to be packed during rush hour. There's a reason I took the first train, because what I would do is I'd sit in one of those 3-seaters and I'd spread my data out on the seat every morning. And I'd be like, where's the pattern? Let's try to draw this line. And I'd try to do it. That was like one of the most fulfilling moments of my day, because I'm like, okay, I'm doing something. Yeah, I rarely ever got a pattern or a line that I could draw, but I felt like I was doing something. So I think that in a way it was masking what I really needed to do, which was get true answers. But in my head at that moment, I was doing that. But really what I think helped me was being able to take my mind off of that journey and do something completely unrelated, where I felt like I was helping somebody else. It wasn't about me anymore. Personally, like I always put myself last. I'm a very selfless person when it comes to things overall. And so when I was on that journey, I think one of the most unsettling things was that every question or every thought was about me. And I didn't like that feeling. So being able to kind of reposition that energy towards somebody else was actually quite therapeutic for me.
Yeah, makes total sense. I love listening to scientists' brains and like the data and how that your brain works, because I would think that brings comfort as a scientist, as a data scientist, to really be like in the data.
It took the problem out of it in a way, right? Because now you're like, you're trying to solve a different problem, which is, okay, where's the pattern? Where's the needle in this haystack of numbers and values and smiley faces that I'm seeing here, right? Actually, I didn't even have a smiley face. I had circles. That's all I had. And actually, I think I had 6 or 7 smiley faces in total in my journey, but none of them were ever blinking. I always got circles. But it took it away from it being a problem I had to solve, and it was more a data problem.
I feel very similar, right? Like I went through the endometriosis journey and I couldn't solve myself, but I could fix my friends.
Yeah.
And taking it away from myself and still doing all the research, still looking into things, still trying different techniques and stuff on myself. But just because I couldn't fix myself didn't mean I couldn't help my friends. And then my clients, right, as it expanded from just me helping friends to going, you know what, I'm going to just coach women and help reduce period pain. If I can just help somebody not suffer, I will feel better. Even if it's not helping me reduce my pain, which it did in the end, light at the end of the tunnel. But yeah, I feel the same way. I felt like as soon as I took it away from what I'm trying to fix myself, but in the meantime, let me go help everyone else, that taking that redirection really made a big impact.
Yeah. I think that's true for most women run businesses, right? Like we are experiencing something and we want to solve it so that we can help others. That's where the empathy comes in so much as women leaders, which I think is incredible. And we need so many more of. I wanted to ask you, how big is the OOVA team now?
Oh, we're still small. We're a group of very passionate people that are trying to make a difference. We're a team of 16 right now.
That's pretty big, 16 from where you started.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's true. Yes. It always feels like we could do with more folks at times, but honestly, we have such a great core group of individuals that are so passionate about what we're doing. They're small but mighty. I love our team so much.
I think that's great. I do a lot of business coaching and I see people getting stuck thinking they need, I need 100 employees before I'm a real business. And I have to go, no, you can be $1 million business just by yourself. Like you don't even need an assistant. You can have one, but you don't have to. Like you can just do it by yourself, and having to have that conversation and restructure. So I love it when people come on here and go, oh no, we're a small team. And 16 is actually, I think, one of the biggest ones we've had so far, actually.
Yeah.
Even the product people, I feel have with a Period Pal, I think it's just her and then the warehouse that makes the actual product. And then the Funk It Wellness team.
Yeah.
Oh, they're great.
So it's like 4 people or something on her
I think so. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Because I wouldn't have expected that. And we've worked with them too. I feel like their team is so much bigger. And I think people say that about us too. Your team must be so big. And I'm like, I'm still taking the call.
Yeah. Oh yeah, same. I love it. I'm like, let me get in there and have the conversations. That's what I want to do, is have the conversation. So yeah.
You just need passionate women. We're changing the world. So
Exactly.
if you're passionate about something and you believe in it, you'll work really hard and amazing results. It's really cool to hear, because we met, I think 3-ish years ago at this point. So it's really amazing to hear how things have changed, because I think it was just you and maybe one other person back then.
Yes. She was my head of engineering. Yes. So it was just the two of us. And I think it's been more than 3 years, believe it or not. I think COVID's like a little strange because everyone clumps those years together. I think it's been close to four years now that we met.
Okay.
So we were just 2.
Yeah. And you were already starting and you were already doing all this incredible work and really changing women's lives. So to go from 2 to 16 is incredible. So
yeah.
Pat yourself on the back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Profound.
Thank you.
So with the app, just one more question. When you're introducing the app to people and you're walking the back end, do you feel like people are coming to OOVA with a clinician, with someone supporting them, or are they finding you like Googling? Like, how are people finding this technology?
A little bit of all of the above. We have a really unique business model where we are available direct to consumer, mostly because of the fact that I think every woman should have access to this data. So we're always going to be available for anyone to purchase. But then we also have the unique angle of this B2C model where clinicians are actually partnering with us and then either embedding OOVA into protocols that they have ongoing, or they're purchasing for their patients, or they're referring to their patients. So it's a little bit of both. We do have a lot of patients that come to us and then they use OOVA for a couple of months and then they request a referral to a clinician. So we have over 300 clinics that we partnered with, and we've been revamping this quite a bit, but we know what clinicians are specializing in. And so we'll make the appropriate referral to patients based on what their needs are. And again, OOVA doesn't make anything on these referrals. It's just a resource that we want to offer to our patients. And then it's up to the patient if they want to pursue it or not.
So smart. Yeah. Because you definitely want a team to support you going through this that has the deep understanding and can help support that. So I love that.
Exactly.
So we want to hear a little bit more about how you're currently taking care of your health right now as you're building and growing a company and taking care of your family as well. Your son is now
6.
6. Okay. Yeah. My boys are going to be 5 in a month. So Time goes fast.
It goes by really fast. Yes, I think it was 4 years, and because your sons were just born, or like they were about a year old-ish.
Okay.
I think they were babies. And I remember that because my son was like, he was crawling into my lap, and you're like, oh, my kids are taking a nap right now. So I remember this really well. They were little. Yeah, I think a lot of people paint a picture of, oh, I have it all figured out. Work-life balance is a thing. I don't think that's a thing. I truly don't believe in work-life balance for myself. I shouldn't say for anyone, but for me, I think, quite frank, I think I'm in survival mode every day. Okay, what is the schedule today, and what needs to get done? So for somebody I never used to go to bed without checking off everything on my to-do list. I've now gone to a point where, okay, what are the priorities? What are the things I have to check off today versus checking every single thing? That was a big transition that I had to do. The other thing that I've gotten really comfortable with, which is also an adjustment I've had to do, is putting true barriers on my schedule, because I will never sacrifice my son for anything else, right? So if he needs something, he's always going to be the priority for me. And so what I've managed to do is actually figure out how OOVA fits in around my son's schedule. So while he's at school, great. Of course, I'm doing OOVA full time. This is great. I have to pick him up at 3:00. Now that's a weird time to stop your day or pause your day, right? But every day he goes to an activity. So at those activities, I'm doing calls, and I've gotten okay with being at tennis, being at ninja, being at swimming, whatever, and I'm taking a call. Sorry, there's kids in the background, there's coaches yelling, but you wanted to talk to me, and so this is what we're doing. And I've made that actually be okay for my team and for the people that we work with. The other thing that I really won't sacrifice is I give myself about an hour and a half of me time in two different ways. I do a Peloton workout in the morning because that just kickstarts my day and nothing can really disrupt that. And then I go to the gym in the evening to do a strength training workout. And that, even my son is like, Mommy, do you have to go to the gym today? Your class is in 45 minutes. Get ready. Like, everyone's in on that routine, which I think is really critical, that everyone's bought into it. So it's okay. I don't feel guilty leaving. Those were all changes that I had to implement that did not come natural to me, because what's natural to me is being like, oh, you need something, I will drop whatever I'm doing and come and give it to you. But I've had to start to create these boundaries for myself so that I can actually prioritize myself a little bit. And I've realized I'm a much happier and healthier person because of it. And everyone else appreciates that too.
Yeah. I'm similar in that my boys are only in school until September. So it's crunching everything into this small amount of time. And then I was coming back to work after they were going to bed, and that did not work at all because my brain was completely fried. And I realized that I can't show up like that. So yeah, major adjustments. And whether you have kids or not, life changes all the time. So it's like learning how to be flexible.
Yeah.
Just
With yourself,
challenging.
not even flexible with everyone else in your life. It's about being flexible with yourself. And I think that's the hardest change that you need to make.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And being kind to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
On that journey. Yeah. Because once you figure it out, the kids are like getting the stomach virus.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, okay,
100%.
my whole day's shot.
That's exactly what I used to say to my husband. I'm like, oh, look, we got into our rhythm, and like my son was born and everything was good because he was actually a really good baby and slept through the night. He was just great. And it made us not want to have another kid. So I don't want to tarnish this amazing memory that we have of this child that was perfect. But then the second I felt everything was figured out, cluster feeding started. Oh, man. All right. We're not sleeping again. And life always throws something at you when you think that you have it all in place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's great. I love that you shared that, because that's, I think, important for people to hear.
So share with us how people can find you and OOVA, and then your freebie, your free gift.
Sure. So you can find us on pretty much every social platform at OOVA Life. Our website is www.oova.life. And we are doing a special offer for Period Besties listeners. We're offering 10% off of your purchase. So you can go to our website and use the code Period Besties 10 and get 10% off. And then, of course, if you have a clinician that you're working with, feel free to add them. And if they're not a provider on our account yet, you can always send us a note and we can reach out to them. Typically, clinicians are quite excited to get onto our platform.
And it's super exciting. I love it. So we have a little lightning round of questions.
Okay.
This is just first answer, best answer. Go with your gut.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. What's the number one self-care that you do when you're super stressed out?
I work out.
What's your favorite book?
Ooh, there's a book that's called The Most Powerful Woman. What is it? Oh my gosh. I get this for every female employee that we hire. You got to edit this out. I want to get this book. Hold on. It's really good.
I'm going to have to read this book now.
I know.
It's really that good. I also went to India last week, so I'm a little jet lagged, and I think that's why I'm being a bit slow.
My husband leaves Thursday.
Oh, for India?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk about that. Okay. So I'll redo this whole thing. So my favorite book is The Most Powerful Woman in the Room Is You. It's all about how you own a room regardless of who's in it. And you're able to take everything in stride and with confidence. It's written by Lydia Finette, who was an auctioneer at one of these big auction houses. And she was one of the only women auctioneers that was actually closing some of these huge deals. So it's a really good book.
Definitely adding that to my list.
No kidding. What's one thing you can't live without?
My family, but tangible, I think, I'll just go with my family.
What's your favorite snack?
Popcorn.
Guilty pleasure?
Chocolate. I cannot say no to chocolate.
Same. If you could live anywhere in the world and money didn't matter, where would you live?
Money didn't matter. This might be a little biased because I just came back from here, but I would want to live in India with my extended family. I've grown up with just my nuclear family around me, and I miss having extended family around. I think you can have as many friends and like close friends that become family around you, but there's something about this family bond that just can't be replaced or recreated. And I think that's a huge asset to have.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite season?
Summer. I'm a summer baby. I love heat.
What's your most loved and most disliked food?
My most loved food. I actually love like greens, like broccoli and asparagus. I love eating those. My most disliked. Oh, I don't like zucchini a lot or squash, like pumpkin and things like that. I just don't like the texture of it. It's so weird to me.
I feel you on that one. Zucchini is only good for being like disintegrated into something.
It has to be fried, then it's manageable.
What's your favorite movie?
The Lion King.
What's a hobby that you have that many people might not know about?
There's two that I keep under wraps. The first is I love painting and anything that's artistic, being creative. I actually painted a mural in my son's room. We did that together, but that was a fun project. He would wake up and be like, "Oh my God, I did a perfect circle." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was a perfect circle by you." Yes. There was a lot of fixing up happening after he went to bed, but that's a lot of fun. And the second is I used to be an avid kickboxer. So I actually trained with UFC for a little bit, and I kickboxed until I was 7.5 months pregnant, and then realized there was a lot of sweat on the floor, and this is probably a liability I needed to stop. But I love kickboxing and doing anything that's like super high intense workouts.
That's amazing. Best concert you've ever been to?
Don't judge me, Backstreet Boys.
You put on a good show, right?
They did, yes. I was such a fangirl. Oh my gosh. My room was like plastered with Backstreet Boys posters. And I would even clip out their articles, like news articles from magazines, and put those on my wall too. I was a crazy teenager.
Love it. Last question. What is your ideal weekend?
Sitting at home on the couch with a really good movie and a huge bowl of popcorn and nowhere to go. And it's snowing outside. And the whole family is at home. So no one has to go anywhere. And we're all protected at home.
Oh, that sounds so cozy. Amy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing about your journey and the creation of OOVA and where you're at now. I love hearing about this incredible journey that you've been on. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great speaking with you all and connecting with you again.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we will see you on our next episode of Period Besties. Bye for now.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresek Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresak, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresak.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.